Welcome to 50 Plus of Montgomery County, a monthly program that is a voice for many, produced by the Commission on Aging, of which I'm a community member. This show is insightful for people of all ages, and each episode takes a fresh look at important issues by spotlighting older adults in the community, representatives of services and programs, and activities of interest to older adults. On this month's show, we're going to talk about solo aging. Joining me is Amy Harbison. Amy is a certified transition coach at Open Window Coaching. Amy is also an alum of the Commission on Aging, as well as a former host of this show. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm good. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, help us to understand solo aging better. Who's a solo ager?
Sure. Well, solo aging is simply aging on your own without a partner and without children. And of the current boomer generation that's retiring now, according to census records, there are about 15 million people who are solo agers who don't have children. That's a very significant number of people who are going through this journey without all of that support built into their family. And the definition has really expanded since the pandemic to mean anyone who is aging for any reason by themselves and who don't expect that they're going to have any support from any family whatsoever. It could be people that have children that are living far away, for example, in another country. It could be people that are estranged from their children. And the interesting thing about solo aging is obviously there are people who choose to have a solo lifestyle, to be single. And so they may be coming into being older, having been solo for quite some time. And then there are obviously people that didn't become solo by choice and lost a partner or a spouse. And that's a whole different set of circumstances. And any time in this continuum of growing older, we can find ourselves becoming a solo ager.
Hmm. So then I'm going to use your terminology, the continuum of growing older. So in that continuum, what's some of the preparation work that's required for a satisfying life?
Well, there's so many things that go into a satisfying life, but I would say that we need to prepare as best as we can for what's ahead as we're getting older. We need to do, the legwork, the research, because there's so many unknowns in there. So whatever we can do, that's going to certainly add to the quality of life. We need to develop our social networks. And I think really a lot of it is mindset. It's staying open to the changes that we're going to see as we age with a kind of curiosity and also an acceptance, because there is no alternative but should just go with it. But I think if we make these decisions, and we're going to talk more about what some of those decisions are, I think knowing that you've made the decisions are going to give you the peace of mind so that you really can enjoy the days ahead instead of feeling like you have pushed off some really important decisions and that's kind of hanging over you. You want to feel like you're really present in your life as much as possible. So get this work done.
Amy, what are some of the concerns that solo agers may have?
Well, I think solo agers, Katie, face the same concerns that any of us getting older would face. They have concerns, as many of us, if not all of us, do, about dying alone, about people making decisions about where we're going to live without our input. They have concerns about having adequate financial resources. And I think they have real fears about losing independence as they get older. So I think any of us would nod our heads and say we have the same concerns. I think the difference for solo agers, what makes it more acutely real for them, is that they just don't have that necessarily have that emotional support network for either the caregiving or decision making right easily available to them. So it is so important for those that are solo aging to know who can be an ally, who can be an advocate for them, and also who will be a voice for them if they can't speak for themselves. So I think that's really some of the most critical concerns.
Now, in light of those concerns, are there any urgent challenges that solo agers face?
Yeah, I think there are a ton of challenges we all face as we age. And honestly, each one of them could be a show unto themselves, as you can imagine. So I will immediately put aside the financial planning piece because that's huge and it could, as I said, take up its own show. But I think if I were to put the financial planning piece aside, the three things that come up to me as being the most obvious challenges would be making sure paperwork is in place, developing these social networks that we'll talk about, and figuring out where you want to live as you begin to need more assistance. And I'm happy to break those down a little bit further. So the first one, making sure that your affairs are in order. And that means an advance directive, which is durable power of attorney and living will. And if people are not still clear what that means, it's if you can't speak for yourself, if you find that you have some medical issue and you can't speak for or act for yourself anymore, who would you want to make decisions for you? What type of treatment would you want to say yes to or say no to if something happens to you? These are critical decisions, and we don't want them just in the hands of people that are not speaking for us. So it's really critical to find people who can be trusted to make those decisions. You also need a power of attorney for financial matters and also legal matters. Your state has specific legal considerations and you need to meet the state's requirements. So I would always recommend that people, if they don't know where to start, they consider the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys, just Google that, or their local bar association to try to find someone who can help them out with doing this kind of preparation. And the biggest thing here is consider the alternative. If you do not designate someone in these critical roles, then the state will appoint someone to do that for you. And we all want to feel like we have made thoughtful, deliberate decisions and that we have a trusted person who can make sure they're carried out. So we don't want to just leave this to default to someone who may not know our thinking at all. That would be the worst case scenario. So I think that's really number one with this whole idea about taking care of business. And people should be thinking through, do they have a niece? Do they have some other relative or friend who they trust that can serve in this capacity without having an immediate family member who can do that? That's really important. Last on this piece, I think is really important, is that you can have the advance directive, and that's great. And we check that off the list and say, yeah, I've done the paperwork. But if we don't communicate and share this document with our medical team and other trusted people, it's like the best kept secret, right? It's really critical that our doctors have these documents in files. So if something happens to us, they can actually implement this document. We can't just feel like we've done it, we put it in a safe place, and that's it. And I would say that there is a large number of solo agers who have not shared this information. A majority of solo agers have not shared this information if they've created it. So that's absolutely crucial. developing the social networks, this could be again a story on itself. We know social isolation is a big concern for all older adults and actually younger people as well. But with this community, we really need to start being deliberate about who gives us energy, who makes us feel loved and appreciated, who is stimulating and interesting to be around as we age, and make sure that we're spending time with these people. So I would urge solo agers to really start to take almost an audit of the people in their lives and make sure that you're seeing these people if they're close by. Now that the pandemic is behind us and we can really see people, it makes such a difference to be live and in person with people. But if they're not, we've all learned how to use Zoom. We know how to use our cell phones. Who do you want to be in more regular contact with? That is just so critically important. Build these networks. And there's a great book on solo aging. I actually have it right next to me, Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers. And what the Sarah Zeff Geber has suggested is, she has lots of resources in here, but creating a map of your contacts, I think it's a brilliant idea. Making a circle, putting a name of your contacts, and maybe making the closest contacts in one color and the ones further out in another color, and then begin to really identify who is this core network for you. It is a great way for you to encapsulate who you know that you can really count on in a heartbeat. And it doesn't have to be 100 people, but I would say 5 to 10 people that you can really count on in this network would be great for you, because we know that the people that we've aged with and known are not necessarily going to be with us for the entirety of our life. So knowing people maybe at different ages and different stages would be really valuable to do. And if people don't have that network of younger people, we have this wonderful Heyman Interages Center at the Jewish Council for the Aging. They can help connect older people to younger people to build some new relationships. So I would say that's a critical curation at this stage of life, is just really developing that social network. And if I have time for number 3, I just want to say where to live. I mean, again, that's a huge topic. Most solo agers, about 80 to 90% of them, have not thought through or even made a reservation at a community for older adults. They haven't begun to think through maybe an easier, less expensive place to live. And they also haven't even thought about, if they're planning on aging in place, what they need to modify to be able to do that successfully. That's a huge percentage of people who are waiting until a crisis instead of taking the time while they have their wits about them. They can thoughtfully think through and plan for what they need to have in their house in case something happens to them. And you can have occupational therapists come in and do a room by room assessment for you. So that's just critical. Can you fit a wheelchair through your front door or a walker? This is just something you can't put off until it's too late. People may want to consider having a roommate if their finances change. And there's a platform called Silver Nest that is one that can match you up with someone who's looking for housing. It'll take your criteria of what you want for a roommate and help match you up. And that's great for people who've decided they could use the emotional or social support, or maybe they need some financial support. This is a great way to be aging. We know about the villages. I know you've had people on talking about villages. There's lots of housing opportunities out there, but people need to think about this before they're in crisis, and that's really just critical. So,
well, Amy, you've helped us to understand solo aging better. You talked about the preparation needed, some of the concerns people have, the unique challenges, and obviously the ways that we can age well. You've given us a lot of helpful information. In the little bit of time that we have left, 30 seconds, please tell us how we can stay in contact with you.
People can reach me at www.openwindowcoaching.com. And that's probably the best way. You can read more about what I do as a coach. I would urge people to look at the Maryland Department of Aging website. There are great resources there. And there's just a lot of important decisions to be made to live that wonderful older life that we can all live. So I hope people will just do the planning they can do to get what they need out of this stage of life.
And we'll make sure to put a link for the Maryland Department of Aging at the bottom of the screen. But thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. And we look forward to having you back soon. You're a regular, so we're just excited to have you join us again. And thanks so much for talking about solo aging.
Thank you so much. It went so fast. Thank you very, very much.
Up next is Steve Gurney. Steve is the founder and director of the Positive Aging Community. Welcome back to 50 Plus in Montgomery County. Joining me is Steve Gurney. Steve is the founder and director of the Positive Aging Community. Hi, Steve.
Hey, great seeing you, Katie.
Great to see you too. Steve, tell us about positive aging and the work that you do.
Great. Well, Positive Aging Community and the Positive Aging Sourcebook is something that I've been doing for the last 33 years. I was inspired to start this organization when my grandfather needed a nursing home, and I realized that there was no resources out there for my family who had to make that difficult decision. And I'm just thrilled that I've basically made a career for over 33 years of helping older adults, families, and professionals connect with each other and connect with resources to make this chapter in life that we call aging more positive.
Well, Steve, tell us, why is solo aging a popular topic?
Well, I tell you, I love this topic of solo aging. And I never even knew it existed until we started doing these online discussions and people started referring to themselves as solos. They would say, I'm a solo, but I don't have anybody to assign my power of attorney to. What do I do? And then they had all other kinds of questions. And I started doing a little bit of research on this, and I found one or two people that had written books on solo aging. And I have to say, the live and interactive discussions that we do on the topic of solo aging are so empowering and so energetic and so positive. It's absolutely wonderful. I mean, there's some challenges that solo agers place because, hey, I'm alone. But the thing that I love about solo agers is that they're empowered to plan for their future because they know that they need to be the responsible party.
Now, being empowered and planning for our future, I know that people have some concerns. And I asked our previous guest, Amy, this question, so I'll ask it to you as well. What are some of the concerns that people have?
Well, I think some of the concerns that people have are, am I going to have enough money? Is there going to be somebody to care for me if I'm not here? And this is where the solo aging comes into play. A lot of people there's a huge stigma against moving to a senior living community, and a lot of people want to stay in the home that they live in now. And so there's a little bit of bias there. Those are some of the main concerns that I hear on a regular basis. A lot of the concerns that people have related to these transitions are woven into ageism because it's not looked at as a positive life experience if you need to move or you need assistance. And it's just, these are just tools to help us live a more purposeful life.
Now, how can we empower, Steve, older adults to age well in place? You mentioned empowerment earlier, but how can we do that?
Well, it's not easy, but it is easy. We got to have conversations. We got to be brave enough to plan ahead if our for life changes that could occur, and have conversations with the people in our network, our family, our loved ones, and be aware of organizations like the Area Agency on Aging, like, communities and home care providers and aging life care managers that can supplement the care that our loved ones, friends, family, and neighbors can provide. Having conversations are really key, but most of us, we don't want to talk about this stuff because we feel like if we talk about it, then it's going to happen. And here's the problem: is if it does happen and you didn't talk about it, you're going to be in your family and the people around you are going to be the ones that pick up all the pieces.
Now, Steve, I know you've had a lot of conversations with many different people. Talk to us about some of the common themes in solo aging, some of the things that you've heard.
Well, there's some really interesting themes. Okay. Obviously, sort of the legal, financial, and who will take care of me. Those are regular topics in our solo aging conversations. But some of the exciting things are it's sort of discovering that I can travel on my own, taking up a new hobby, but inevitably, what happens in our solo aging discussions is the conversation comes up with, how do I make friends? I have not made new friends in 40 years. When my wife was alive, she made all the friends, and I haven't made a new friend. And so a lot of times we have these brainstorming conversations on making friends. And for a lot of folks, at first it's intimidating, but then again, like I said, it's empowering because look, if you've lived on this planet for 60, 70, 80, 90 years, a lot of that sort of, the stuff that's in your head when you're younger, feeling self-conscious, it goes out the door a little bit. It's sort of like, yeah, I want to get out there and meet people just like me, make some really cool friends. I'm going to do it.
Hmm. So social networks are important. In talking about solo aging, I learned a new term, and that is aging life care manager. Steve,
Holy
can you tell us what that is?
aging life care managers, they are absolutely amazing. One of the aging life care managers in Montgomery County, Susie Murphy, she calls herself a wedding planner for growing older. And I use that, I borrow that phrase from her because sometimes it explains what an aging life care manager can do. Is that these are trained, usually social work or nursing professionals. They can do a wide variety of things, but one of the things they do best is make an assessment of a situation, whether it be yours or your loved ones, map out a plan, and help you implement the plan. Now, why are aging life care managers so important to solo agers? A lot of solo agers are meeting with aging life care managers now, developing relationships so that if in 10, 15, 20 years they need assistance, they have a relationship.
Mm. Steve, elaborate a little bit more, on building and managing our own personal village.
Okay, the idea of building and managing our own personal village is so important to all of us, whether we're a solo ager or you've got a big family. Through life, many of us, we collect friends and acquaintances, and we have relationships. But going back to what I was saying earlier, we rarely have deep conversations about, hey, if something happens to me or something happens to you, I would like to develop a supportive relationship. Let's have coffee and talk about what that looks like. And mapping out your personal village, either on a notebook or a spreadsheet or whatever, and just figuring out, here's my family and these are the things that they can do, and here's my friends and here's my neighbors. What are the gaps? What are some of the areas that I can fill in? This can be very important, number one, for social isolation, for friendships and activities, but it can also save you a lot of money, because if you have a network that can provide support to you, that you don't need to write a check to a service provider, it can stretch your money. And if that's a concern of yours, which it is a concern of a huge amount of Americans, is can I afford to grow old in retirement if I have some healthcare changes?
Steve, I have one other question that I would like to ask you. And I know you know a lot about this, but you mentioned planning. So what about it? Many people, they don't think like, oh, I need to plan for solo aging. You've alluded to that. So it really comes out of need. So in that need, what can people do?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's I get calls every day of the week. It's folks that are hesitant to plan, they're hesitant to have conversations, and inevitably I'm getting a phone call from their adult daughter who's flying in from California because and doesn't know what to do, doesn't know anybody in their network, and is trying to do the best for mom, and is really under a lot of stress. And I think when people reflect on that, and when people go through a caregiving situation, the first thing they usually do is they say, I'm not going to put my kids through this. And so I'm going to start having conversations and start having a plan. And so what our goal is that it's never going to be perfect. None of us have a crystal ball, but the more conversations we can have, the less stress we're going to put on our support system around us. And I feel one of the things is and there will always be stress on your support system, but more if you don't have conversations and plan. And where the solos are leaps and bounds above, the married couples with a bunch of kids, is that they recognize that, hey, look, I need to be in charge of what happens to me in the future. So I'm going to take steps to put that in place right now.
Well, Steve, you are certainly an expert on this topic. How can we stay in contact with you as well as sign up for the Positive Aging newsletter? I know I'm already signed up for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's really easy. If you just go to proaging.com, PROAGING, as in positive aging, proaging.com. You can see, you can order copies of source book. You can jump in on our discussions. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can reach out to me. I love brainstorming with people and helping them think outside of the box and making the next chapter in their life, or the chapter that they're living right now, as positive as it can possibly be.
Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our program for today. As you can see, the voices of those 50 plus matter every day and in every way. To learn more about services for seniors in Montgomery County, please visit the Montgomery County Seniors website by visiting montgomerycountymd.gov/senior, or call the Senior Resource Line at 240-777-3000. And as always, thank you for watching 50 Plus in Montgomery County.